you know, all those animals in Lion King, they're like real. And they're like, yeah. And she was just like, she was so excited. And it stuck with me. I know it sounds so ridiculous.
Welcome back to Worldwide Tales, where real stories, real animals, and real impact come together.
We are your hosts. I'm Jess.
And I'm Kristen. This season, we're taking you deep into the world of animal welfare. And today, it's all about the people who step up to make a difference.
Today's episode, Volunteers Unleashed. The moments that change lives, from the field to the heart.
Volunteers are the beating heart of Worldwide Vets, whether it's rhino dehorning in Namibia or rebuilding shelters in Ukraine. They're out there doing the real work.
And we want to share those voices with you. Volunteering isn't just about what you can give. It's also important to reflect on what you can gain from giving your time.
Our first interview is with Dani.
I am a volunteer coordinator in Worldwide Vets. So I help place volunteers with the correct projects suited to their experience level, suited to the experience that they're after, and then also skills that they would like to learn. But in being a volunteer coordinator, I also coordinate and organize our Vet Visions project, as well as our Thrive Mental Health Retreat. So half of the time I'm on the ground hosting, which is the part that I absolutely adore. I love being around people. I love being around animals. So yeah, I basically put together the pre-vet traveling project in Zimbabwe, which is a 2-week project where we take pre-vets, anyone interested in zoology, or basically any career within the animal industry, and we take them around Zimbabwe for 2 weeks, introducing them to different sanctuaries, SPCAs. They get to observe vets in clinics, work on farms and within the livestock industry. So my job is putting that itinerary together, organizing the trip from start to finish, and then obviously hosting the volunteers on the ground. And then for Thrive, it's basically just all of the organization, assisting Gemma in getting lectures ready, and then I help host that on the ground as well. But when I'm not hosting, then as I said, I'm basically taking inquiries. So if anybody's inquired on the website, chances are you've spoken to me or Bailey, and we just help people to get matched up with the correct projects. It's actually funny how I came into Worldwide Vets, because I am qualified as a digital designer and illustrator, but I was a COVID graduate and I started working as the marketing manager in a private game reserve. And when I was on the ground, it was really cool because obviously I've grown up in a family who's very passionate about wildlife, very passionate about the outdoors. We spent at least 2 to 3 holidays a year in the national parks just around Zimbabwe. So I've always had this passion for it. My sister's actually a wildlife photographer, so I think it runs in the family. And then I started hosting volunteers at this private game reserve. Worldwide Vets was actually an agent for the reserve. And I met Gemma through that, and she saw me hosting volunteers on the ground. We worked together for a while, obviously in collaboration. And eventually when I decided to leave the private game reserve, just because there was no more growth for me there, Gemma was like, hey, I want to put together this thing. Do you want to take a bash at it? And I did, and it just grew from there. And it's been so cool because obviously my passion for wildlife has been stoked up, and now I also get to work with people from around the world. I have a really big passion for local communities, and this job really allows me to explore both aspects of that. So yeah, sorry, that was a very long explanation, but that's what I'm here
it was
for.
perfect. No, it was great, because I feel like it's nice to have a long introduction, especially because now, like, we know obviously so much about you. You have a passion for not just animals, but also for the volunteers that are on these projects as well.
Yeah.
And like, it must be so exciting for you meeting so many different people, like from different walks of life.
Super incredible. And I think that, like, if I was to travel the world, I would know like at least one person in every city. So that's really cool. I could probably go couch surfing for free. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge to all my ex-volunteers out there. But yeah, no, very cool.
It's amazing, and such a natural progression as well, like you say, with your background and your family. It just feels really wholesome. And like, what would you say a typical day looks like for you as a volunteer coordinator?
So if I'm on project, we usually start working with animals. Anybody who works with animals knows that you start your day pretty early, up at the crack of dawn, which I have to say is not my favorite part because I'm a night owl. But for the baby baboons and pangolin and whatever else we work with, it's worth it. So usually we'll get up at around like 6:30 or 6 to be on the ground at 7. Work with whatever animal we're working with that day, be it livestock, sanctuaries, um, vet clinics, and then we'll break for lunch, and then we usually have a full afternoon. But obviously, that's only 2 months out of my year. For me as a volunteer coordinator, I usually tumble out of bed at 7:30, have my breakfast, and then I usually sit down. And I always start the day just going through all of my emails, obviously, just to make sure that I'm getting back to everyone. But it's really cool because you get a really cool insight to every single project that we work with, as well as every single volunteer. And it's interesting, as a volunteer coordinator, you get such an intimate understanding of the projects that we work with. A lot of the time, a volunteer will come to us thinking that they know exactly which project they want to go on. And then I'll be like, no, let's sort of take it back a step. What do you want to get out of your volunteer project? Where are you in your experience, and what skills do you want to learn? And oftentimes the project that looks really appealing to them online may not be the project that delivers that. So I think it's really cool to be able to place somebody in an experience that you know is going to give them the most back, because I'd hate for somebody to, first of all, pay for their flights, pay for the project, get really excited, and then be let down. So I find it really rewarding being able to help people find these experiences, because they're all unbelievable experiences, but not every experience is for everyone. I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah. That's basically what I spend all day doing. I also do quite a bit of project development. So I look at all the budgeting. I look at different sanctuaries that we can work with, what itineraries we are going to work the best for the projects that I host. And then just a whole bunch of logistics, accommodation, meals, that sort of thing. That's all sort of my jam.
That's really great. I don't think many people would expect or realize that volunteering is so tailored. I don't think they would, when they're looking at the website, I don't think they would expect that communication and that really, like you say, intimate conversation, and just to have that experience tailored to them. I think it's assumed that it's this black and white and they just book whatever they want.
Yeah, and I think what helps a lot is our partners on the ground are also really passionate about teaching the volunteers, not only about the clinical aspect of things, but about their culture, and about all the other things that come with it. And a lot of them are, if you are super interested in one area, they will try their best to give you the best experience that you have. I'm going to use our Southern Safari Stables project as an example. They have obviously the wildlife side of things, they have the cattle ranching side of things. And if you speak to them, that family is so passionate about hosting and teaching that if you're interested in a certain aspect, they will make sure that that's sort of what your course hones in on. So obviously there are more who take in, like, for example, SOS Wildlife is, which you two would both know, has set wildlife work going on. But I'm sure that both of you can attest that the people on the ground who are hosting share this passion and this drive. And if you literally give them 5 seconds of your attention, they will throw everything that they have into making sure that you understand and you get the best experience that you're looking for, and the best understanding of which aspect of wildlife you're interested in. So I think that's really cool. It makes a huge difference working with people who are all passionate in their own fields.
Definitely.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's when you go somewhere like that as well, for a lot of these volunteers, it's new. They've never been away, they've never been on holiday, or they've never been alone on holiday, or whatever it might be. Just even that welcoming, the welcoming side and the knowledgeable side of what they're booking on for can mean the difference, obviously, between a good experience and a bad experience. And just to know that all of the staff and all of the people on the ground in these projects do have that is just it's a nice feeling, and it makes everybody involved feel much better and much more comfortable in it. And then I mean, you kind of did mention about matching people with the right projects. And sometimes you do get people who want to go onto a different project and you kind of tailor them to another one. How do you, is there kind of a list you go through to match people, or how do you kind of help to match people with a project?
So before we even start sending them information packs, we obviously have our screening forms, and this basically breaks down just sort of what level of education they're in. Because we have projects that cater to everyone from pre-vets up to qualified vets. So a lot of our projects are split between obviously projects that cater to pre-veterinary students or students within their first and second year, and then others who have no experience whatsoever. And then we have our clinical projects. So our clinical projects are domestic and wildlife, same as our non-clinical projects. Basically, I just like to get an understanding, first of all, where they are in their education, because I can't send somebody who's non-clinical to a clinical, which is sort of an obvious one, but is not always obvious to everyone. What is really cool is people who don't qualify for the clinical projects, oftentimes there is a husbandry project which can cater to them if they're interested in a specific location or a specific clinic that they want to attend. And then my second checkpoint for myself is just, what are they interested in? Because you have people who are absolutely passionate about wildlife, but they may not be passionate about domestics. Like, they're fine with cats and dogs, but that's not what they're going to travel to see. And then just trying to place them in a project that I feel they would get the most out of. I look a lot at aspects like the age, the projects that cater the best to that age group, whether or not they've traveled before. Some people will say, okay, I've been to South Africa before, but I haven't been to Zimbabwe. Place me in Zimbabwe where you think, I would fit in best. Some people come to us with a specific interest in a specific species. Sorry, my words. Interest in a specific species, which is really cool, because we do have projects that are species specific as well. For example, our wildlife orphan rescue project in Zimbabwe is an orphanage that takes in all kinds of wildlife, but they specialize in primates. So anybody who wants to specialize in primates, I know that that's where I'm going to send them. We've got 2 horse riding projects. One is for beginners, the other is for people who are more advanced, but then they get the wildlife aspect at that project. Whereas if they want to go into agriculture, I might send them into the one that's not as advanced, just because they would have the opportunity to work with the cattle, to work with agriculture, that sort of thing. And then we have our mega herbivores as well now. We've got a rhino and elephant medicine course, and then we've got our rhino dehorning course. So I would say that the aspects that I look at the most are obviously level of experience, their core interests, be that location or species, the age group, and then just experience that they've had before. I'd really like the people booking with us to feel comfortable in, like, sort of having a chat and finding the best place to place them. Sorry, that was a strange sentence, but there it is.
No, that's great. I mean, it definitely sounds like you are the person for all volunteers, but especially first-time volunteers to speak to. What would you say are some of the most common concerns or fears that first-time volunteers hear or tell you about, and how do you help them overcome those?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the volunteers that we get are obviously very young. Some of them are just out of school, they're 18 years old, it's the first time they've left home. And I think a lot of the time when they read about different locations in different countries, when you Google these things, unfortunately, a lot of the negative aspects of a location comes up. And I think that instills a lot of fear, not only in the kids, but with the parents. So sometimes I'll get like panicked phone calls from parents where they're like, don't tell my child that I'm like messaging you, but it's a completely valid concern. And like, I think that I would be the same. My mom would be the same at the ripe age of 27. Would be like, is she going to be okay? But I think that just ensuring that they have, first of all, that they feel comfortable with you and that they trust you, that you are putting them in a place that you have checked out yourself. All of our projects, a member of the team has checked out, made sure that it's 100% safe. Safety is obviously our 100% our top priority. Sorry, lost my words. Our top priority on every project. But I think just the safety on each project is always a huge concern, because it is overwhelming when you're traveling to a place that you've never even heard of before. I can't really speak for like the American projects. It has come up, but for me, having grown up in Africa, to me, it's like, you know, you think you're like, it's completely fine, I've grown up here. But for somebody who's never been here, it's super like overwhelming. If I was to be sent to New York City, I'd be like, what in the heck am I doing? So yeah, just putting them at ease about that. And then obviously a lot of our projects cater to individual travelers, and 90% of our volunteers travel alone. And most of the time they're female. 80%, I'd say 85 to 90% of our, and these are just figures that I'm pulling out of thin air, but like, based on what we've seen, I haven't done the actual calculations, are individual female travelers. And obviously that's always a huge concern. Are we going to fit in? Is it going to be okay on the ground? Am I safe? Those are concerns that come up a lot of the time. And obviously we have checked out every single project and been on the ground. So safety is something that we have always put first. But as far as fitting in, I mean, if you are interested in doing this, chances are that the 9 other people who are on the ground, you're going to have something in common with them. And it's so beautiful to see how people from like different walks of life, different backgrounds, all just come together and form such like close-knit relationships just because of their shared passion of like animals and wildlife. To me, that sounds really cheesy, but it's a really cool thing to witness. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
it is
sounds
one
so
of
lovely.
those. It is so lovely because I think we have said this before in previous episodes, I think, about this, but everybody is in the same boat pretty much before they get on that project.
Yeah.
And the memories that you build, the memories that you share, the memories that you create in that project, in that community, they just last a lifetime. And that's what we do it for. We do it to make those memories.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, you know, before it, when you make those memories, you don't think, oh, I was so anxious before. You never think back to the anxiety and be like, oh, you know, it wasn't worth it. You always think of the nice memories, and they're what you remember in time.
Yeah.
And speaking about memories, do you have any standout memories? Have you from any projects you've been on in the past or hosted or?
Oh, I don't know. That's such a difficult question. I've had so many cool experiences in this job. I'm going to give you a really cheesy answer, but honestly, it's just true. I think that for me growing up in Zimbabwe, I think that there's something very special about Africa. And once it's in your blood, you literally just, it gets in your bones and you can't like step away from it. So for me, most of my like standout memories are honestly just stepping back and watching like the awe on somebody's face the first time that they encounter an elephant or the first time that they see a giraffe in the wild. It's such a rewarding thing to know, firstly, that they're enjoying the experience, but secondly, what a privilege to have grown up here, you know? I know that sounds really cheesy, but every single memory that I think back on, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I take this for granted sometimes. And just watching like that first, like, oh my goodness moment, like, I think one that definitely stood out and it just made my heart so happy is I overheard one of my girls from the Vet Visions project last year. She was on a call to her friend, and I was walking past and I heard her saying, you know, all those animals in Lion King, they're like real. And they're like, yeah. And she was just like, she was so excited. And it stuck with me. I know it sounds so ridiculous, but it honestly was like it made my whole heart warm. And I was like, oh my goodness, I love you and you could stay forever. But yeah, it's just, I think just seeing like the wonder of like wildlife and the natural world in Africa just like blow people's minds, because I think that when you like were in it every day, you sometimes forget what a novelty it is, you know? I mean, I was just saying to Jess before the call, it was so cool. Last week, I literally went from like working with a baby baboon to tracking pangolin and finding pangolin. And then the next day we were watching like rehabilitated baby elephants, like drinking their bottles. And that was in the space of 2 days. So it's just like, it's so fast paced on all these projects that sometimes I think you don't take a moment to step back and be like, oh my goodness, this is actually an incredible experience that I'm a part of. Yeah.
Definitely. And aside from people falling in love with South Africa, like specifically, why do you think volunteering has such a profound impact on people, even like years after they've been?
Yeah. I think that volunteering really allows people, anybody can go on a safari and go to the bougie hotels and get driven around. But I think that volunteering is really cool because it shows you what it actually takes to work in these places and to manage the wildlife. You get such a authentic experience. It's not, a tourist experience. It's not something that anybody can get involved with. And I mean, you are literally getting involved in these sanctuaries, in these wildlife reserves, in like, and I'm sorry, excuse my French, but like the crap jobs, like you're getting involved in that, but the crap jobs are like really cool jobs. Like who is gonna complain about like shoveling elephant poo out of their bomas if they have like nice hay to sleep on that night?
Exactly.
And just seeing like how much work goes into like the background of things. It's not this like glamorous, like let's have champagne in the sunset as the elephants like wander past, because anybody can have that experience. And I think getting to actually meaningfully contribute in these areas is just something that you can't, it's like something that money actually can't buy. And then just getting to meet the people who are so passionate where they work in all these places. And because you're volunteering and you're working beside them, there's this sense of camaraderie. Because you're actually actively contributing to what they're doing. Whether it's carrying a pile of logs or, holding an animal down in the back of a vehicle that's been darted, you're actually a part of what they're doing and not just sort of like a spectator as a tourist is. That's my opinion at least. But I think it's really special to be included in all of the background work that goes on behind the scenes, because there's so much that goes on that people don't know about. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. And I feel like, I mean, this is just my opinion, but Discovery Channel does not do it justice.
No.
Really does.
The gazelles going across the plains. I'm like, what the hell is a gazelle? There's no
like, where are the jeeps? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So for anyone listening to this podcast who has been thinking about signing up for a while, or volunteering, or even just inquiring for one of the projects, what would you say to them?
I would say do it. Just don't. You're gonna overthink it. You're gonna wonder if you're gonna get the best experience. That is my job and Bailey's help to help you find, the best spot for you. And I promise you, if you go on one of these projects, you will not regret it. I've been on the same project 8 times, and every time I go on, it's a different experience, because you never know what's coming when you're working with wildlife, first of all. But it's something that'll stick with you forever. And I'm not just saying that to draw my point home, but honestly, it's the most authentic way of exploring the world. And it's something that is going to not only build you as a person, but it's going to open your eyes to not only the culture of the place, but a bunch of different experiences and even like job avenues that you've never even thought of. It can open so many doors and you will make so many connections for the future. Yeah, my advice is just do it. Stop thinking about it and just do it. Nike.
That's perfect advice.
If I get pulled up for copyright, I'm blaming you guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the time to chat to me.
Next, we're going to speak to Grace, one of our volunteers on one of our previous projects.
So much for joining us today, Grace. We really appreciate it. Could you just introduce yourself and let us know where you volunteered and what made you want to get involved with Worldwide Vets?
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me. My name is Grace, and I'm from the U.S. I live in New Jersey. That's where I am right now because I'm home from college. And I volunteered with the Vet Visions trip with Worldwide Vets, which is based in Zimbabwe. It's coordinated by Dani currently. And the trip that I went on, it was Vet Visions, but they have 2 options. There's like a Bulawayo to Harare route, and there's a Harare to Bulawayo route. I did the route that started in Harare and traveled to Bulawayo. Oh, and then why I got involved. So actually, I think Bailey, who's on your staff, came and spoke over Zoom to Pre-Vet Club at my school. I go to the University of Delaware, and I was a freshman when she spoke, and I remember it was like one of my first few meetings at Pre-Vet Club, and I was like absolutely enthralled. I was like, oh my gosh, you can like go to Africa. And then also one of my friends and mentors went on one of your trips to South Africa, and she spoke about her experience there at the same time Bailey spoke to the club. And I remember just being like, I have to go on something like this.
Oh,
Yeah, that is really cool, because I think the projects that we do, they are projects that you wouldn't necessarily think that you could ever do in your lifetime. You know, it's not exactly like going away to, you know, Spain or, you know, a vacation. It's something so completely different.
No, for sure, for sure. And there's nothing at my school like that's a study abroad similar to that. We do have a study abroad, but it's to New Zealand, and there's like domestic animals. It's really great from what I've heard. I haven't been able to go on it, but African wildlife is just completely different. So
yes, definitely. It's a whole different world.
For sure.
Where else are you going to be like chasing giraffe in a field?
I know.
You know? It's like stuff you see on David Attenborough.
I like you asked me 2 years ago, I never would have thought like I would fly to Africa and work with the wildlife there. I was like, oh yeah, I want to be a vet. And then I ended up in Africa, and it was just so awesome.
That is so good. Like, I think it is one of those things, like I said, that you don't necessarily think that you can do it until you do it. And then you do it, and then you're like, oh, I want to do this forever.
Yeah, you get the bug.
So can you tell us about the first day on the project? So what was going through your mind? You know, did you have any worries, any anxieties, or what was you thinking about that first day?
Well, the first real day, because we landed and we got settled into our accommodation and everything, but the first full day, I remember we went to the SPCA in Harare, and then we went to Wild as Life. And I remember just traveling to the SPCA. We were driving through Harare, and when you're in a different country, obviously it's like a completely different experience, because you see pictures and maybe you hear things, you have an idea of what this country is like, and then you get there and you're actually like hearing the horns honk traffic, and you're seeing the people in the streets and the vehicles and the animals that you might see on the streets. So that I was kind of just taking that all in the first day, and it starts to feel real when you actually are in it versus when you see pictures and you imagine yourself going there. So I was definitely just like getting used to Zimbabwe, I think. And then on the first day, because we went to SPCA in Harare, I wasn't really expecting to interact with wildlife yet. I was like, okay, this is the intro day. They're getting us used to being in Zimbabwe. And then we actually went to a place called Wild as Life. And I remember we drove there and I fell asleep on the drive. And it was like, I don't know how long it was, but I remember I woke up and we're like parked near some trees, and we go into the sanctuary, and I look up and there's a monkey sitting in the tree. And I was like, and then went out and we were on this lawn at Wild as Life, and there were kudu in the lawn, and there was no fence. They were like just a little bit away from us. And then it kept getting better, because then we got to see a baby elephant, and then we got to feed giraffe. And I was like, it was like mind blown. Every single thing that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, they're right there. Like, this is
amazing.
It was really incredible.
That's really, really amazing. A wonderful first day.
Yeah, it was really cool because we really just like dove in head first, and I loved that because I wasn't expecting that when I fell asleep in the car.
It's like falling asleep and then waking up and then like, what? Excuse me? Like, have I just like gone to heaven? Like, what's happened?
No, I remember literally waking up and there's all these, like, there were peacocks everywhere too, and all these different monkeys, and I was like, there's no fences. They're literally right there. Like, they're so close.
I don't think a lot of people go on these projects and expect it to be so up close and personal and so practical, but a lot of the projects, well, nearly every project actually, is so hands-on from day one. I think it's just incredible. What an incredible way to get stuck into working with wildlife.
Absolutely. It's very, very immersive.
So are you able to let us know a little bit about what you did day to day while volunteering and what kind of animals you got to work with?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, on the first day, we went to the SPCA and we interacted with like your dogs and your cats, anything that you would see at kind of a typical animal shelter. But after that, we bounced around to a bunch of different sanctuaries. It was a very road trippy trip. So we stayed at probably like 5 or 6 different accommodations, and different sanctuaries had different wildlife available based on what was in their area, what was required at the time. So we did anything from bushwalks with snare sweeps. We went on a few game drives and like looked at a bunch of their animals, to animal husbandry, animal enrichment, anything hands-on. There are a few places where we got to help with like medical care. We also got to interact with like some domestic animals. So we interacted with sheep and goats and donkeys and a few horses and cattle. And yeah, it was kind of whatever each sanctuary needed is what we ended up doing. So some places we were building like enrichment to put in primate cages, and other cases we were feeding, and other cases we actually like helped with a few transports and stuff like that, and got to do some more hands-on medical care. So
Sounds like a really, really great mix.
yeah, it was awesome. I think Dani was saying that it was designed to kind of be an intro to everything vet med. So there was like not just the wildlife, there was also domestic stuff too that we got to do, and we got to like deworm and give injections and all that stuff. So there was a very wide range.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it is good, because I feel like, you know, as much as they're going around and chasing after rhinos and stuff is very fun and something you would never do, and I wouldn't say no to it. Sometimes like it's nice to have that varied, you know, the varied aspect of
Definitely.
how animal conservation and how animal welfare works in different parts. And, you know, I think that is good that you got to see that too.
Yes, absolutely. And I had a lot of fun with everything we did. So it's kind of hard to choose a favorite thing, because we all got very involved in all the different things we ended up doing. So
my next question is, what was your favorite thing? No, I'm joking.
my favorite thing, I can't choose one.
So was there a moment during the trip then that hit you emotionally where you thought, wow, like this is crazy, or it just shifted your perspective in some way?
It is really hard to choose like one thing to answer that question, but there was one point in the trip where we were at a wildlife sanctuary and we had to do a lion transport, and we kind of had a little bit of a lecture-based thing where we talked about the darting process and how that looks, and then we actually got to see it happen. So we watched them dart the lion, and then all of us volunteers had different jobs. So we got to get very hands-on after she was down, and some of us were vaccinating, some of us were listening to heart rate, some of us were tracking your respiration rate, some of us, like I actually got to microchip this lion, and that was so incredible because I never thought I would literally be able to reach out and touch a lion. And it was just like, that's such an incredible experience, because they're such powerful creatures and they're so majestic. And it's really emotional to watch them go down, but then also to watch them wake up at the end of the procedure it's just so cool.
That sounds really great. Especially, like you say, they're such powerful beings, and then just to watch it kind of be darted and just fall asleep on the ground, it's just unimaginable, I think, unless you actually see it firsthand.
Yeah, definitely. And then like when she was waking up, like we were watching for signs that she was waking up, and then you see an ear twitch, and then you see the tail flick, and then she yawns, and it's crazy.
Now everyone jump back.
Yes.
I do think they do recover a bit like domestic cats though, and they kind of, when they do sit up, they look at you a bit like, why are you watching me?
I would say like a little bit, but they're definitely a lot more annoyed, because most of the cats that I have seen wake up after surgery they're kind of just like dazed and out of it still, because whether or not you reverse the drugs kind of determines how fast they come out of it. But that lion, I remember, like after she came awake, since they're like from the wild, they're used to not being necessarily safe in a cage like a domestic cat. She was definitely a little annoyed. She did growl at us. We were very much on the other side of the fence, so it was fine. But yeah, she was a little bit annoyed when she woke up.
I mean, as you would be, right? I mean, I definitely would be if it was me.
Oh, me too. Me too. If I'm just hanging out and then all of a sudden I get darted and I'm asleep, I would be like, what is going on?
Absolutely. And how do you feel how you've grown since volunteering? Do you feel like you've taken away any new skills, confidence, or something completely unexpected?
Yeah, definitely. Because this trip, you got to interact with a lot of animals that you don't necessarily get to interact with in the States unless you're like working at a zoo, and that's a completely different environment. I feel like I definitely learned a lot about how different animals, different types of animals function and how to act around them, because I have a lot of experience with like your farm animals and then your small animals, dogs and cats. Like a lot of people I know that are pre-vet have experienced like how to act around a domestic cat, domestic dog, how to act around farm animals and stuff like that. But wildlife operates kind of completely differently. And even with wildlife acting differently, each type of wildlife interacts differently. Like baboons are going to act completely different from lions in a pride. So getting to see how the different social hierarchies of each type of wildlife like that was really cool. I definitely feel like I have a lot more skills just looking at an animal and understanding a little bit more about why it's doing the behavior it's doing based on the other animals that are around it and based on the humans that are around it.
Nice. And do you feel like that's helped to shape the kind of vet that you want to be?
Definitely, because there are a lot of things that you don't have to do with domestic animals as much with wildlife that helps me realize how important it is to like listen and watch, because when you're with a domestic dog, you're not expecting it to go attack you or something. And not that we were ever going to be attacked by any of the animals here, but with wildlife, obviously, it's not something that you can just walk up and go pet a lion. Like there are a lot of different safety procedures put in place, and there are a lot of different precautions that you need to take. And there's kind of just a higher level of awareness that you need to have when you're interacting with wildlife. So I would say it definitely showed me hands-on the importance of patience and of watching and just making sure you're on high alert when you're around these animals.
Nice, thank you.
Absolutely. I think that was amazing. I actually was listening to you and then I was like, wow, I never thought of it how you described it. Like, you know, the hierarchical the system that you said. I never actually thought about that, like how, you know, you can just look at them and think, wow, like this is how they interact with each other. And then, you know, you've now got that awareness of that. And I never even realized that you could think of it that way. So that's a really good perspective to have.
Yeah, there's very much social hierarchies with, like I said, with lions in a pride, they're going to act differently based on what lion it is and like whether it's the male or the female. And same with baboons, like they're going to act completely different based on the baboons they've like grown up with and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Did you get to work with zebras at all?
We didn't really work with them hands-on, but we did get to see zebra on a couple of game drives we went on. One of the closest interactions we had with zebra were on a game drive at Chippengally, and you know, on a game drive you just go out in the bush on whatever sanctuary you're at, and we did get up pretty close to some zebra, and we didn't like interact with them very hands-on, but we did get to see them, and that was really cool. And then towards the end of the trip, we did get up even closer to some zebra at one sanctuary called Free to Be Wild, but we didn't do a ton with them because they didn't require the medical care and enrichment at the time we were there as some of the other animals that we interacted with.
Oh, okay, that's cool. I just hopefully you'll get to work with them in the future because they're really interesting. When you mentioned behavior, like zebras are really interesting. They're really attached to their family groups. So if you try and separate them, they tend to go a bit wild.
Yeah, no, I believe it because all the zebra we saw were like in pairs or in multiples. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if you're interested in that kind of thing, they are pretty cool to work with.
Yeah, did you work with zebras when you was in SOS Wildlife, Jess?
Yeah, we did. We had to capture and relocate a whole bunch of them.
Oh, that's a lot of hands-on experience. That's really cool.
Yeah, they're really, really cool. They kind of are horses, I guess, but they don't behave like horses.
Yeah.
They are very chompy animals and very almost like a really stubborn feral child. They will tell you if they don't want to do something.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
So do you still keep in touch with anyone from the project, any of the team, or any of the other volunteers that you met on the project?
I think I've kept in touch with basically everyone, because not only do I keep in touch with the other volunteers, I also was literally talking to Dani today because, surprise, surprise, I would like to go back next year. So I've been talking to her about coordinating a trip next year. And then even I've been keeping in touch with some of the hosts from the sanctuaries we were at, and all of us have, because we are all like in group chats with the people from Free to Be Wild and the people from Chipangali. And there were like a couple places, I forget the names of the sanctuaries, but we keep in touch with like the person that was our host directly. So definitely I've been keeping in touch with them, and even some of the other volunteers that were there at the same time that weren't on the Vet Visions trip, but were also at the sanctuaries, I've kept in touch with as well. So
Oh, that's
That
so
is
lovely.
lovely. Yeah, it's nice that you've built that connection, because I think we always say, don't we, on the podcast, like on the previous episodes, like for everyone to have that same passion and the same connection, and we all kind of communicate through that passion of animals. It's really lovely. And then obviously all these new skills and the confidence and the perspectives that you've got, and you're all bringing that together and you're staying in contact with each other, and it's so lovely, really, really. And what you said, you're going to volunteer again, so what are you thinking to do next time?
So the place where we did the lion transport was at Chipangali Wildlife Orphanage, and I know they have a pre-vet trip a few times a year where they get to do even more stuff. And because we spent just a couple of days at each location, I thought it'd be really, really cool if I went back to one of the locations and spent a longer amount of time there. So I would love to go back to Chipangali if possible. And there was also Drummond Ranch that we went to after Chipangali that was absolutely just like one of the most beautiful places on the trip for sure. And nothing is set in stone. This is just something that I'm thinking about that I would love to go back and do, but I would definitely love to do a more extended stay at one of those locations. Maybe go to Vic Falls too, because I didn't get to do that. So yeah, it's not anything set in stone, but it's definitely something I would really love to do.
That's so exciting. I love that. I love that you've just come back and you're already planning another trip. It's just it's infectious.
Oh yeah.
I've not even been yet. I've not even been on the project yet, and I'm already planning to come back.
Soon, you will soon.
You should. It was so awesome.
Oh, no, it's amazing. I think it's infectious. Like once you've gone, you just get this bug.
Because there's so many things that I'm thinking about now where people will ask me a question. I'm like, oh, actually in Zimbabwe. And then you're thinking about that trip and you're like, oh, I want to go back. Like our group chat with just our volunteers is still going off, and we're all still talking about how we miss it. We want to go back. Like last week hit our 1 month mark of when we arrived to Zimbabwe, because we were June 2nd through June 15th. So I was texting and I was like, guys, 1 month ago today, we were landing in Zimbabwe, and everyone was like, no, we want to go back. We miss it.
Oh, time passes too quickly.
It does.
This might be a tricky one, but if you could, how would you summarize volunteering? How would you recommend it to other people in a nutshell?
I would say volunteering is a really incredible experience because it benefits kind of everyone involved. Not only do you get to go do hands-on things and experience this other culture and this other area and kind of learn a lot about things that you won't necessarily get to see wherever else you're from. Growing up, I didn't really understand like what poaching was like in a non-trophy poaching way. So when I came to Africa, I was kind of like, if we're interacting with poachers, it's going to be a them versus us, and kind of like, oh, they're the bad guys, we're the good guys because we're saving the animals. And I come to find out, and this might be like common knowledge for other people, but it's not something I really thought about in the US because you don't have as much poaching, especially not in my area. Like we have geese, nobody is poaching our geese. But going there, they have trophy poaching, but mainly it's subsistence poaching. So people that are poaching are not poaching because they want to get rich. It's because they literally need to feed their families and put food on the table. And I didn't realize how much of it was like out of necessity. It's not necessarily these people hate these animals or these people just want to get rich. It's very much because they're trying to feed their families and they're trying to keep their kids alive and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to learn that it's mainly subsistence poaching. And then it was also interesting in turn to see how people are combating it, because obviously there are fences and guards and there's some manpower involved, and you do snare sweeps and you're looking for ways people might be poaching. But there's also a very impactful and very important area to combat poaching that has to do with education. So a lot of the sanctuaries that we were at not only had a wildlife care side and then like anti-poaching manpower, they also had education programs for the surrounding communities. And that is incredibly important, because when you start educating the community on the importance of the wildlife and then also giving them a lot of practical tools in how they can subsist without poaching, that's when you start to see real change, because you don't just stop a poacher by stopping the poacher like in a given moment. You need to, in order to have that change throughout generations, you need to get to the community, you need to get to the kids, you need to educate. And that's so much more important than I thought. And there's so many good programs for that I didn't realize there were. So yeah, that's just another really cool thing that I learned on that trip.
No, that's great. I think, yeah, you're right. Educational is so powerful and it's so needed. Like it's not talked about enough, I don't think.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
Absolutely.
And also with the education, they're doing this because it's a need. They need to eat, you know, they need to put that food on the table, not just for themselves, but for the family. But with the education, it's important that they're being taught that, but then they're also being given other means to get that money to you know, provide for their families. And that is what a lot of like the places that you mentioned, they are doing things like that. They're helping them as well.
Yeah, there's at least a few places we went to would like entrust livestock to certain communities in exchange for like a certain amount of that livestock back afterwards. But that gives people something tangible they can do. It gives them food. They know they have security because they have livestock. And they know they can put food on the table at the end of the day. So when you are providing resources like that to the community, they don't then feel the need to keep going after the wildlife. You also are benefiting directly the animals and the people that you're working with. It's a win-win situation. You are being educated about conservation in that area, and you're also in turn going and helping educate the community with different tools that the sanctuaries have developed, so that everyone is growing and learning, and it's all for the benefit of everyone involved. It's not just for the animals. Like that is kind of what piqued my interest originally, but there's also so much education done for community and community outreach. So it's for the animals, yeah, but it's also for the people, and everyone in that situation is benefiting. So it's really, really great.
That was perfect. You nailed that on the head. That was amazing. That was so good.
Yay.
Yeah, you've really summarized it beautifully, and you're absolutely right. It does benefit everybody, and you can learn so much about yourself by volunteering as well. It's just, yeah, incredible. Would definitely recommend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think volunteering sometimes comes with this massive culture shock? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you cope with that difference in culture?
I don't know that I was very culture shocked when I came to Zimbabwe, because I kind of was just, I tried to have a very open mind, because I knew I didn't know what I was getting into entirely. Other than my ideas about poaching from like when I was a kid, I didn't really know much. So I tried to go about things with an open mind. I definitely think for people that are going volunteering, it is important to have an open mind, because there are a lot of things that are done differently in different countries that are different from where you might be from, whether that's the US or anywhere else. And I remember Dani always talking to us before we got to certain sanctuaries. You might see something that you don't necessarily agree with how an animal is being taken care of, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. And that also doesn't mean that it can't be improved. Like an example would be this didn't actually happen to any of us, but this is just what Dani was telling us before we would get to certain sanctuaries. She was telling us, like, sometimes you're going to see an enclosure and you're going to think that enclosure is way too small. And it could be that the animal was released and the release failed, so they had to take it back in, and the enclosure is only temporary. So you're not seeing the full picture. Like, it's not actually staying there forever. Or it could be because of funding, because of federal regulation, anything like that, that they're not able to get it a bigger enclosure, and they're doing the best they can. But you shouldn't stop supporting a sanctuary because you don't agree with one thing it's doing, because they're always doing the best they can. There's nothing that is being done wrong on purpose, and there's nothing that's really being done wrong. It's just you need to be flexible. You need to work with what you have. So definitely, if you're going elsewhere, you need to keep an open mind for things like that.
Definitely. I think that's a great reminder to everybody, and you've explained it beautifully.
Thank you again for having me on the podcast. I'm very excited to hear how it turns out and very honored to have been selected for this.
Oh,
You are
thanks so
absolutely
much.
more than welcome. It has been a pleasure meeting you. I hope hopefully we can do another one
Yes,
next year.
yes, I would love to.
Perfect.